Before we dive in, here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Horror movies get a bad rap. They're cheap thrills, mindless gore, not cinema, blah, blah, blah.
But we here at Sitting in the Dark know better. We know that horror is more than just jump scares and chainsaws. It's a reflection of our deepest fears, our anxieties, Okay, and there's a lot of jump scares and chainsaws.
Join us, Pete Wright, Tommy Metz III, Kyle Olson, and Keenan Diaz, as we cut into the dark heart of horror cinema.
Every episode, we explore a different facet of the genre, from survival horror to home invasions, from zombies to birds. We tickle the tropes, analyze the angles, and sharpen our own axes along the way.
We'll introduce you to the classics that shaped the genre.
Then the modern masterpieces that are pushing the boundaries of terror.
Sitting in the Dark is your guide to navigating the terrifying, thrilling, and sometimes hilariously bad world of horror movies.
We'll help you understand why we love to be scared.
And maybe even convert you into a horror fan yourself.
So turn off the lights, close the basement door,
and join us.
Sitting in the dark.
In a world where podcasts are a dime a dozen, one show dares to stand out from the rest.
The Film Board, a podcast unafraid to tell it like it is.
We're here for one reason and one reason only. Downloads.
That's right. We review new release movies because that's what gets people's attention.
But just because we're in it for the clicks doesn't mean we don't take our job seriously.
We're part of the Next Reel family of film podcasts, and we're proud of it.
Our reviews are just as insightful and thought-provoking as any of our other film podcasts.
It's just that this podcast is all about that sweet, sweet SEO.
The nectar squoze from the tree of Bing.
We're only human, but we're also creators.
And creators eat clicks to survive.
So if you want honest, unfiltered opinions on the very latest movies right on opening weekend,
delivered with the self-awareness of a team looking for downloads,
then tune in to The Film Board.
Where every download counts, but yours counts the most.
I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the next reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Ford v. Ferrari is over. James Bond does not drive a Ford, sir.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. You see it?
I think so.
Most people can't.
Carroll, Shelby. Maybe. Leo Iacocca, Ford Motor. Suppose Henry Ford II wanted to build the greatest race car the world's ever seen to win the 24 hours of Le Mans. What's it take?
Well, it takes something money can't buy.
Money can buy speed.
What about speed? You need a pure racer behind the wheel of your car. That's Ken Miles.
I don't trust him an inch.
We heard he's difficult. No, Ken's a puppy dog.
No. Whatever it is, Shell, no.
Trust me.
You're gonna build a car to beat Ferrari with a Ford.
Correct.
What'd you think? Ford versus Ferrari?
I mean, this is the second time I've seen it. I watched this in theaters when it came out. Really enjoyed it. And watching it again, I found it held up. Still is a really good movie.
That's not enough for me. That's not enough enthusiasm, excitement for anything that you've just said. It was fine.
Let's talk about 2001, Pete. Can we talk about your feelings on that film?
I hate that movie. Oh, snooze. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So anyway.
All right. I guess I'm the one who has to just all out love this movie. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I think the performances are fantastic. The races are actually like in the scope of a film that is about a really boring 24-hour race. They do a good job of kind of making it engaging. And I think James Mangold knows how to provide information to the audience in ways where you don't feel like you're just getting an exposition dump. And it just makes for a smart way to tell this story so that I have an understanding of like the track of Le Mans. I have an understanding of like how it works and everything. And I thought they I thought they did a great job. My biggest takeaway on this rewatch is that this should not be called Ford v Ferrari, because if anything, while the battle between Ford and Ferrari might be the impetus to actually get to this point where Ford was racing in these types of things, the Ferrari competition ends up being kind of like a letdown, because the Ferrari cars basically break down and they're out of the race. And it's like, oh, sorry, Ferrari, you're out. It reminded me of like Grand Prix, like when when they just flash the black flag and say, sorry, our team's pulling out because somebody died. Like, it's just like, wah, wah. It was not very exciting as far as Ford v Ferrari. What this should be called is Shelby and Miles v Ford, because that's really what this story is about. It's about people who are passionate about competing and winning at something like a big competition like this. And then when they start working with a corporation, how the headbutting actually comes to fruition, because that became the real crux of the story, and really the driving point of how the film ends. Like, that's the actual plot of the story, is how are these two going to navigate working with a corporation in a way where they can still win, but kind of also make the corporation feel good about themselves.
I agree, sort of. I mean, I agree that you're absolutely right. It is an anemic way that Ferrari falls out of the race, but it's also the real truth of the purity of the race. The fact that Ferrari fell out, it's not that Ferrari, like, there are just so many ways in Le Mans to lose the race. And that's one of the things that this movie does really well. One of the ways you lose the race is if you make a car that can't last the 24 hours. That's a loss. And Ferrari lost because of that. It's not because they didn't cross the finish line ahead of it. It's not about finish line. Again, for those who don't remember or didn't listen to the last time we did the Le Mans movie, Le Mans
movies are totally different types of movies.
Right. They sometimes take just as long, though. Is that you win by distance. That's important in this movie too, right? You win by the amount of distance you cover in 24 hours. And if you make a car that can't cover the most distance in 24 hours, doesn't matter how fast the car is, it loses. It's a loser. And that's because Ferrari was such an ego-motivating entity for Ford, I think that's how the fight is known. They were the motive. They were the inciting incident for Ford to even get into racing in the first place. I think that's important. I understand the wah-wah, and I feel it too, because it makes me a little sad. I love the Ferrari, the 330 P3, the Ferraris are gorgeous, gorgeous cars. And I love them, and I wanted them to be at least stronger contenders in this first year. But I mean, I love the GT40 more. I mean, the GT40 is an incredible car, and the fact that it won 4 straight years after this is an incredible feat. That's my case, that the movie is focused on the motivating incident, which is Ferrari. Enzo Ferrari was a dick.
He is, and you're right. I mean, that's the motivating factor is why it's titled this, because that's the reason we're having this film to begin with. And so I get that. It's just, I think it's funny because in the end, that's really not the actual story that, especially that James Mangold chose to tell, right? Like it really is this other battle against these soulless corporate entities. And how does that all come to pass over the course of the story? And I will say the element that for me best closed the loop between Ford and Ferrari in the film is after we have the final end of the race and it's revealed that McLaren actually wins because his car happened to start farther back on the track. As you were saying, distance is a key factor here. And it ends up being Miles, who had to been in the lead until he slowed down to do this thing where all the 3 Ford cars came in a line. There was this moment where Miles is standing there watching as McLaren is getting celebrated, and he looks up and he sees Enzo Ferrari up there, and Enzo Ferrari just kind of like gives him a tip of the hat, like acknowledging him as the actual greatest man on this track. And Miles is great. That character is done so well in how he doesn't get angry at these sorts of things. He's so easily just like finds a way to move on. And he takes that acknowledgement from Ferrari as, I guess, his own success. And then after he's talking to Shelby, they just start immediately planning like the next set of points or for what they need to fix for the car. And so I loved that about the film. And to your point, like that kind of ends up being the final wrap up of the Ford v Ferrari, is that little tip of the hat that we have, acknowledging not even the corporate winners, the Ford company, but just the actual racer. And that's something I like about how it represents Ferrari, is he kind of, yes, he makes great cars, but he is celebrating the racer.
Yeah, because that's I mean, I think that the company Ferrari is built on racing, and Ford was not built on racing. It was built on commoditizing the automobile. And that's what modern Ford, or this era of Ford, had to overcome to get into racing. You know, what does it mean to be a Ford man? Well, it means something different when you want to enter this, you know, this race. There are a couple of interesting things about the actual event and what is portrayed in the movie. And I think it's important to call these things out because, interestingly, this is one of those movies that is celebrated as doing an able job of really presenting what happened and not over dramatizing the events for the sake of the film. There are a couple of things that were choices that the film had to make that are not able to be confirmed. One of them is, you already said it, is Miles at the end. He is portrayed as being a really sporting competitor, and he just gets to work on the next car. There are, you know, contemporaries who said that's how he behaved. There are also contemporaries who said he was devastated. I think that is...
Oh, well, I think he was devastated too.
Yeah. Yeah, devastated too, but the movie doesn't show you.
Oh, it does. You don't see the devastation he's feeling?
No, what I'm talking about is after this race, there were months of him being depressed and devastated and very sad. And this movie just sort of fast forwards through that and says, let's go get to work on the next car. And there are contemporaries who say that did not happen, that he may have looked sporting, but he didn't put his arm around Shelby and go get to work. He was broken about this. And that the movie chooses not to focus on that. I don't have a real problem with it because there are conflicting reports. Movie makes a choice. That's one that's okay. The one that is, I think, interesting about the race is that there are reports that Bruce McLaren actually sped up to nose ahead, not knowing anything about the 8-meter distance that his car was parked from the start, knowing that he'd already have that lead, that he actually, you know, when they came nose to nose, that McLaren sped up. And that is not portrayed in the movie as well. And in fact, it's hard to see in footage, like what happened. But it doesn't paint him and Chris Amon in a great light. The real story doesn't paint them in a very great light, Bruce McLaren. And that's, you know, for those who follow McLaren, that may be par for the course. The last one is the role that Josh Lucas plays, Leo Beebe. The film, it strongly hints that it's a sabotage, right? That he's sabotaging Ken Miles. And yet the movie frames the photo finish as more of like a tone-deaf kind of, oh, bad call. We made the bad call. And it was all PR-driven and not necessarily malicious. There is a case to be made, again, with contemporary reports that Beebe was like, and that the movie builds this, that Beebe really hated Miles and never understood him, and that this was an active effort to deny Miles the win, that there was some sort of collusion to ensure that Miles didn't get the win. I don't know. I watched this movie, and the case that I think Josh Lucas is making is, I'm going to deny him the win. There's something that feels really surprising about that. But yeah, the corporate chicanery at work.
Oh, yeah. It's very frustrating. Very frustrating stuff. That, but it becomes kind of a key part of that. Like I said, it's just such a key part of the film throughout.
Yeah. Right. But you see, I mean, none of this stuff is like gotcha stuff, right? There's nothing in the reports that have been written about the real events that indicate that the movie is not an accurate retelling to, particularly an emotional degree, but also to a practical degree of the development of this car and this race and the people that went into it. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it paints that well, I think. I do have a question for you that just race specific. One, I was wondering, like, where are all the other like little cars and things like that when the race was going? There was a point finally later in the film when I see him pass like a little Fiat or something. So I'm like, okay, so they're there. It's just not the focus.
It did not make a big deal out of it. Right.
But the other thing that I don't remember in Le Mans, the McQueen film, is that in this film, the racers actually have to start like at their pits or whatever, and they have to run to their car at the start of the race to get in and get going. And I don't think that's how McQueen started. He's in the car waiting. Like, that's the whole thing, is the heartbeats and everything. Did that change over the time?
It has changed multiple times over the time of Le Mans. And now I think they're in the car when they start contemporary Le Mans. And so it was originally thought of as a gentleman's way to start the race. And
maybe they should just make it like they have to run like a 5K first and make it's like a type of triathlon. Like, and then they, at the end, when they finish the finish line, they hop out and then they have to go shooting. Like, that's really how to do it.
To drive. And then they have to get out, put skis on. And
right.
Then there's a bike.
It's a septathlon. With a 24-hour race right in the middle.
Just to confirm, the Le Mans start ran to their cars at the beginning of the race. It was a traditional part of the race's history. It was discontinued due to safety concerns. And in the early years, drivers would stand on the opposite side of the track and sprint to their cars, which were lined up on the pit wall when the flag dropped. The practice was discontinued in 1970 due to safety issues.
I wonder if it's because in this one we see as people are taking off, like people are crashing into each other right at the start of the race. It's like, okay, maybe that's not a great way to do all of this.
Yeah, turns out it's dangerous. Yeah, you'd like to, I mean, you want to actually get to a race before you have people crashing out of a race. And many tracks don't know that well.
Yeah. This film, a key part of it is that the driver that we're primarily following, Ken Miles, I know he's just one of the team, but he is also integral in the design of the car. Is that a common thing with these racers, like even through today? Because I've never thought of racers as actual mechanics building the cars. I thought they just, me drive fast sorts of people.
I think they would have an issue with that characterization, but maybe not a lot of issue. No, it's not that common. And Miles was brought in because he is first and foremost a mechanical engineer and who wanted to race and happened to be good at racing, but everybody seemed to like him more as an engineer than as a racer. So this was kind of an interesting transition for him to be able to get to race. He was also such a jerk, like in public, that because he suffered no fools, and everybody thought that was he was never to be put in front of a camera. So that made him a unique sort of unicorn in the business to be able to be a part of the design of the car and to drive it and to test it and to do all of those things.
Yeah, because we certainly had, well, maybe not quite to the same extent, but like Niki Lauda definitely had a very deep understanding of the mechanical nature of the cars that he was racing. I just don't remember him actually tinkering or like climbing under the body of it to work on it. And maybe I just am already forgetting that film, but
that would be fair too. I think, the drivers have no doubt an intimate understanding of how these cars work, right? Because that's how they have to communicate to the people who build the cars,
sure,
right? Like, and how they know when things aren't working right. It's just that incredible sense. So, yeah, I just don't know of any right now.
Sure.
Any team drivers who are part of the engineering team building the cars. I don't know those. So.
Christian Bale, thought he was fantastic in the film, like brilliant portrayal of this character, conflicting emotions, the anger, just everything about him was great. How does Matt Damon work for you as Shelby, as far as our other primary character of the story that we're following?
It's really interesting. So Christian Bale looks like Ken Miles, right?
Except for the teeth. He didn't have to wear prosthetic teeth.
He didn't have to wear prosthetic teeth.
Like in our last film.
That's true. But he does have the Ken Miles look, I think, and he's, his body, his face, like everything shaped very Ken Miles. Matt Damon does not look anywhere like Carroll Shelby. And yet I think he embodies the spirit of Carroll Shelby really, really well. If you look at Carroll Shelby interviewed, I think Matt Damon pulls it off. I think he pulls off the accent. I think he pulls off the salesmanship, right? I mean, Shelby was incredible with cars, and also he knew how to sell them. He knew how to sell these cars. And so I think that he really embodies the spirit of Carroll Shelby in a way that surprised me. I didn't see it coming with Matt Damon. He seemed too smooth, right? Too soft. And yet he plays for me, for sure.
I loved him in the film. I thought he was great as this character who hit a point where he knew he just couldn't race anymore because his body couldn't handle it. And so here he is doing whatever else he can to just stay in the world of cars, selling cars, putting together teams of cars, like all of that stuff was, it worked really well for me. I liked all of that stuff. I feel like I had heard of the Shelby Corporation, but I don't think I could have given you any context of it, but it's interesting to just kind of get a little bit of a story of him at this point,
The one to look at is Lee Iacocca, played by John Bernthal. Do you have any Iacocca, anything?
He's a name I recognize quite well.
He's a titan of automotives. Lee Iacocca is such an interesting guy. If you go way, way back, I had to go way back to images from his Theta Chi fraternity yearbook to get a picture that even remotely looked like John Bernthal.
You're talking specifically about how he, like the look comparison, not the character comparison. Okay.
Yeah, because the guy that I know as Lee Iacocca is like 90s era Iacocca. And I feel like I was really hit sideways at Bernthal playing Iacocca. And I also think he did a hell of a job, Bernthal, playing this role, because he also was the kind of sales guy, and he had to be the corporate shill that stood in between the guys who didn't trust the work that they were doing but bought into it in name only, and the guys who were doing the work and trying and were told that they were able to take it seriously. And up to that first Le Mans race, he had to walk a tightrope until Ford tells Shelby, go to war, which was an extraordinary moment in this film for me. I thought it was fantastic. So Iacocca ran Ford, he then ran Chrysler, and he is just the Detroit post-war power factory guy. His books were all over corporate desks as leadership mantras. And
I think that's how I associate with him, because I'm pretty sure my dad had a book of his when I was a kid. Like, that's the only reason I think I recognize the name, other than later in life knowing he was in charge of some car stuff. Is basically how I put it.
The era that Iacocca was, it was just after that era, I guess. I worked for a consulting company where Iacocca's words were part of the teachings of in our courses, and so we had to get through Talking Straight and Going for Broke and all of these books that he's behind, and we had to kind of memorize Iacocca's big stories because they were motivating for others, and it wasn't a great era. It wasn't
he was like a TED Talk star before TED Talk was a thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
Very much that.
But an interesting guy and an incredible career, a really incredible career.
I mean, we already talked a little bit about Josh Lucas as the real kind of the CAD character, but the one that I find most interesting is Henry Ford II, and I think that's such a an important role in the scope of this story, but and Tracy Letts, I think, is such a great performer, and the way that he brings that character to life for me was fantastic, because it felt like this corporate overlord type of character, right? You really feel that with him. But it's that moment when Matt Damon takes him out in the car, and then he just breaks into tears weeping, and you're kind of laughing because it's really funny that there's this man who's had just is he scared? Did he wet his pants? What's going on? But then he's like, if my father could have been here. And it's that idea of all of this stuff that my father has done, but he never got to experience something like this. That was so powerful and such a great moment. And then that whole go to war thing, and then the other moment, of course, that's great is after they lose that first race, and that whole conversation about why I shouldn't fire you, and just the way that Shelby spins that entire thing is yeah, so let me get back to work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was an exceptional way that character was written and structured and then played, to be this person who is the head of the corporation, wanting these things, not understanding what it took to get there, and then still in this place where he had to navigate his own bureaucratic system that he's built, and people like Beebe who are using that against even him to kind of manipulate things.
I think it's really interesting that whole angle, that first of all, about Henry Ford II, Henry Ford II was not just a corporate Nepo baby, right? Henry Ford II is known to have worked hard to modernize Ford. He was part of the legacy of revitalizing the business of Ford Motor Company when it really, really needed it. And we get a little bit of that in the movie before it takes off on the development of the actual Le Mans car. But I think you're absolutely right. I think this is the movie has a cynical perspective toward the capitalism of auto manufacturing in the beginning, right? It portrays Ford early in the movie, and it portrays Beebe early in the movie as the corporate boobs we have to put up with. But by the end of the movie, you realize that both sides had to come together to make this car, and Ford had to change. Henry Ford II had to change, and we get that moment in an emotional rug pull for the ages. I think calling out that race scene where he says, "Dad would have loved to have been here to see what we've been able to do, what you've done," is a pinnacle moment, a seminal moment in this movie, because it demonstrates this massive culture of automation and manufacturing can change, and it changes from the very top. And I think that's a really important thing, because the whole movie is not cynical. The whole movie is not cynical, but it does say that at the beginning you could make the case that the movie doesn't look very kindly on big manufacturing.
Well, yeah, you could make that case. I think what it ends up making the case of is that, like any of these big corporations, they are trying to do the best things that they can, right? That's the goal. He's working hard to do this, but because it's such a big organism by this particular point, it has so many working parts that those don't always work in harmony to actually lead to that. And I think he might realize that. It might be one of those things that he acknowledges is there. It's just something that he's just going to have to live with. But I don't know. It was just, it ends up being some people like Beebe who have their own personal gripe with somebody or something, and then use their own power within the system to manipulate in ways that it's still theoretically working in the corporation's interests, but it also is very much feeding into his own specific interests. And I think that's really what we're getting with that.
Yeah. I will say Beebe was, his friends apparently saw the movie and felt like he was straight up vilified in the movie because of the cynical perspective that it puts on, the role of PR and his role in the movie. And people were not a fan of that. That's the one where that role was really hyper criticized for being the villain. And
yeah. I was wondering, like, how much of that stuff actually happened, locking him in the office, like all of that sort of stuff that Shelby has to play all of these games, like how much of that really was part of the story. And it sounds like probably a lot of it was fictionalized just because it does make for a good villain that we end up getting to personify.
Yeah. And part of it is that there is evidence that they clashed, Miles and Beebe clashed, but it was Beebe's idea on the record. It was Beebe's idea for the cars to slow, for Miles to slow, thus meaning Miles lost the race. But if you're a friend of Beebe, that's a smart PR move to get the photo. If you're not a friend of Beebe, then Beebe's a jerk. Like, I totally get it. Perspective is everything on this, but in general, the record is as portrayed.
Well, but here's the thing. And this is why I find Miles to be such a great character, is that he didn't have to slow down, at least as it's scripted. I mean, who knows what Shelby actually said to him in the pit, but the fact that he's like, the car's yours, do what you want. And the way that he finally has that moment of recognition, like he is so far ahead of everybody. Like if he just continued that, like he could have probably broken another track record for all we know. But he slows down because he hits that point where he recognizes, like, people have called him out numbers of times about being difficult, not being a team player, all of these sorts of things. And he has this moment. And I don't know how much of that actually played in real life. Like, is he so far ahead and then legitimately slows down to actually join the teams or let them catch up so that they can have that moment? But the way that the film is portrayed, it's his decision to do it. It has nothing to do with Beebe by that point. And I think that's what makes him such an interesting character. And even his wife recognizes it and everything. Like he is somebody with character. And Beebe, it's not that he doesn't have character. It's just he's a corporate machine focused on the image of the corporation.
Corporate interests. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And you said it. Miles chose to slow down. Miles is, if nothing else, complicit in his own loss, right? This was incidental. Nobody thought about this 8 meters. Nobody could ever have imagined the 8 meters. And it's hard to blame Beebe for this as the villain.
Although I would think the racers would know things like that. Like, like that's something that I would assume that they...
I don't know, man. After 24 hours, I just have to imagine you're not tracking that.
Yeah, but it's not like they're doing it 24 hours straight. They have little moments of sleep and stuff.
No, they have breaks. You're right. Yeah. They can sleep.
They got plenty of time to stew over these sorts of things.
A lot of stewing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've talked about the characters and everything. What about the actual ways the race was shot? That's something that's come up quite a bit because in the beginning of this series with Grand Prix, they were coming up with such innovative ways to put cameras on cars and do a lot of unique work in the context of filming actual races. I was, now we're in the day of drones. I was like, did we have drone footage in here? I didn't investigate into the behind the scenes as far as all this. Were there points where we had CG cars? Like, I don't know. What do you know about how they shot the races with this film?
Combination of lots of things.
That's a great answer. Combination of lots of things.
There was a lot of putting Miles' car on. They built a lot of those hybrid rigs where they put the car frame on top of another car and have a professional driver with Bale in the seat pretending to drive with all the other cars driving around him, driven by stunt drivers. So he wasn't actually driving. They also built the rigs where the car was the race car was on the front of the driving rig and a stunt driver was in a roll cage behind it doing all the driving kind of up above. A lot of those sort of hybrid monster frames to drive. But the rest was just like straight up follow cars and cars with great big cranes on them to get the low track stuff and cameras mounted to cars. Lots of cameras mounted to the cars. So, there's a lot of replacement, of course, because the tracks were, they had to do a lot of digital work to make the tracks, period tracks. But largely, it's the racing stuff is practical in terms of, we're not creating CG cars.
Yeah, because sometimes some of the camera moves, I wasn't exactly sure, because there are some pretty slick moves. And that made me wonder, like, were they actually getting the drone out there too? Because I feel like there was at least one that was a higher angle shot that then came swooping down. But I guess it could have been a crane that they could have been using.
Yeah, they definitely had, like, they they had all the tools. The drone, they do use the drone for sure for tracking stuff. There is a wonderful video that they talk about how they do all of the rigs, right? All of the building rigs. And they do talk about the drone work that they built into this. But it's not like what was was it ambulance? That drone, there isn't that much drone stuff.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was kind of...
They don't have any principal photography is not done on... character photography is not done with a drone.
Yeah, well...
So,
well,
but it was mind blowing. It was good, and I think this is one of the things that we've been talking about this entire time. Is you take these races, which can be boring unless something really incredible is actively happening, and just filming the race is not enough. And I think this is an example of a movie that does the race stuff great, but also knows what the story is, and the story is the people who are making the cars, and that's the thing that made this, I think, a really special movie. Not like it makes it a superior film to the vibes-oriented Le Mans with Steve McQueen, which was just not enough story.
Or documentary, or really.
Yeah.
It was a tough one. Well, the other thing that we get here is we've also talked about lives off the track. We don't really get any behind the scenes of that with Shelby, but we certainly do with Miles, with his wife and son. And I thought that was actually also treated well. It wasn't like, oh, this director doesn't actually care about these off-track stories. It's just here because they needed to get some women in the film, and we end up with some pretty boring scenes. Here, it's actually an interesting family dynamic. I love the relationship between husband and wife. I love the relationship between father and son. I questioned often how often he brought his son to these tracks as he was doing his work, knowing that something bad could happen. And that actually, it's interesting because, and I mentioned earlier how I liked how James Mangold would give us moments to provide exposition in ways that didn't necessarily feel just straight up expository. We have his son at one of his tests, and the car goes into, or it crashes. This is the one, I think, where his brakes are burning up or whatever. And he spins out and crashes, and the car catches fire, and he gets out and he's totally fine. But that sets up this fear for his son Peter about the possibilities that this sort of thing could happen to dad. And it becomes kind of a driving force of that character relationship as we are getting those moments. And it builds to the tragic climax, obviously, of the film. But it gives us that moment between Peter and, I can't remember, which one of his guys is it that is his like right hand repair guy, the mechanic guy, talking about the flame-proof suits and all of this sort of stuff, and the whole thing about if they can get out, like he got out, and that's what it takes. And that was a great bit of exposition, kind of explaining that world of like flame-proof suits, the way they design all of this sort of stuff. Likewise, we have a moment later in the film where Ken is sitting with his son Peter, and Peter he's drawn the Le Mans track so that he can know all of the stuff, and he asks his dad to walk him through it, and his dad describes like the perfect lap. But it also helps us go, okay, we're getting a sense of these different parts of the track. And while I don't necessarily later in the film when they're racing, I'm not able to say, oh, they're on the S's now or whatever. I can't really quite do that. But it's a great way to kind of explain that for the audience, like, this is what you're doing. And I liked that quite a bit, because for me, I feel I thought Matt Damon was talking about me I thought they both were talking about me at various points because he's just like, you're not just, you can't just sit in the car and just turn left all day. Like, I was just like, that's kind of what I think.
Isn't that what racing is?
That's what it feels like to me. And then when Miles was selling his car, he's like, I think you're more of a Plymouth man. I'm like, I think he's also talking about me. Like, I'm just not one of these people who's meant to have one of these cars.
Oh my God, yeah. Andy. Oh, Andy. I think this started because we were talking about the family.
Yes, sorry, I just went off on that other tangent.
No, it's good. I think I agree with you. I think one of the things that we've talked about in the other movies is just how poorly they're written for the women characters. I think Molly is a great character. I like Molly a lot. I think Molly works really well, and I don't know how much more. This isn't Molly's movie. This is a movie about Ken and Carroll and Ford, and I don't know what else we would expect of Molly, but the character was rewarding and written well and gets some good comic moments. I love it when they're fighting across the street and she brings out a chair to watch. Like, I think those beats are really memorable and good for her. So,
well, he also had that final moment with her, which I think is also just an important beat to have, because Shelby just can't get himself to go up to her porch and talk to her, but he talks to Peter, who happens to be on the same side of the street as him. And then she notices him and they just give each other a wave. And that kind of is what Shelby needed, just that acknowledgement. And it's almost like an acknowledgement on her part too. Like, I know it wasn't your fault.
Yeah, right. I think this is actually an interesting thing. Originally, the film was titled Go Like Hell, which is important. Do you know why it's important?
Just that it's based on a book.
Right. But regard to the sign, when he says 7,000 RPMs.
Oh, yeah, right.
Do you know why that matters?
Because he's going faster. And I don't know, because Ford was dictating that, they don't go over 6,000 RPM for some stupid reason.
Yeah, well, the stupid reason was, like, we've invested a lot in these cars and we want the engines to last as long as they can. And we think we don't trust the engine at higher RPMs. And so we don't trust the drivers to be able to know when they're overtaxing the cars. And those decisions were being made not by the mechanical people, but by people like Beebe. And that was a real controversy, right? That was a legitimate controversy and a rift between the drivers and the suits, right? And we get that bit where they do the Daytona race, and that's just we're going to test out the GT40. We're going to see how it goes, and we need you to tamp it down a little bit because we don't want to ruin the engine. But Miles is saying, I know this car better than anyone, right? I know this car better than anyone. You got to let me have it. Now, that specific event was largely fictionalized for the movie, but the rift between Miles and drivers in general and their stables is legendary. And that moment, that hero moment in the movie, is such a fantastic emotional beat, and it actually absolutely tells a story of where these cars are tuned to be most successful. And he talks a little bit about it in the beginning when the guy comes in with his car and says, it's not driving right. He says, well, it's a sports car. It's got to be driven like a sports car. You're driving it like a Chevelle or whatever, and you're holding it wrong essentially, and so that's the real story. And we talked about Miles, and why he was such a good mechanical engineer and a driver, because of just how attuned he was to the car, to the sounds it was making and the vibrations and all of that. All of that matters. I don't think I like the title Go Like Hell better than Ford v Ferrari. I don't know.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
You don't like it?
No.
Yeah.
When they were making that, it was actually Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt that were, I don't know how attached they were, but that was the plan at that point. And then at some point, Joseph Kosinski was brought on to make it. And then
Michael Mann.
Then the budget kept going up, and it hit a point where they just weren't going to do it because it was too expensive. And then finally Mangold came on board to work on it, and things fell into place. But yeah, I mean, can you see Cruise and Pitt playing in this?
I can see it. I would prefer, if we're going to put Pitt in it, I'd prefer Clooney. It seems like a thing they would do.
Well, if it's Cruise and Pitt, which one has the better English accent to pull off Miles? I don't know. Have we ever heard either of them do? I mean, Tom Cruise did Irish in Far and Away.
Well, Snatch. Brad Pitt did an absolutely unintelligible.
Was that Welsh? I don't know, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
he did.
Welsh Cockney something. I mean, they can.
They're
sort
actors.
Of
I guess
accents.
they get paid enough to figure that sort of stuff out.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
All right, fine.
I think it's better not that we didn't. I think it's fine where we landed, but I do think it's interesting that Michael Mann was attached to this, went on to make Ferrari, and Kaczynski was attached to this, and we're about to see F1. Like, these guys need to make their car movies.
Well, and Mann, so much so that he was still attached as executive producer on this one. So I don't know if that was just a throwaway title that he got to keep after having been attached to this. Who knows if he actually had any involvement or not. But yeah.
So
cool. All right.
Love it.
It's a good one. So we'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM. Engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by The Magnetic Buzz, Artie Son, Flint, Oriole Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show. You ever sit in your garage, flipping through old ticket stubs, maybe staring at a dusty movie poster tacked to the wall and think about the ones that got away? Yeah, I do that more than I'd like to admit. There was a time I could have gone pro. Letterboxd pro, that is. I had the page open, code in hand. All I had to do was click the button. But I didn't. I figured, I don't need the stats. I don't need the filters. I don't need to know what movies I've watched 6 times but still haven't rated. Now I sit here, listening to the sound of someone else's highlights echoing through the garage like a radio broadcast from a better timeline. Meanwhile, I'm over here trying to remember if I ever finished that Fellini binge I started 3 Decembers ago. Letterboxd Pro is clean, no ads, finely tuned. It tracks where movies are streaming. It breaks down your watch habits by year, by genre, by director, by that weird phase you went through with Nicolas Cage. It turns your film diary into something closer to a race team logbook. It's precise, efficient, and just a little bit addictive. And here's the kicker. You can get 20% off right now. Just head to letterboxd.com/pro and enter the code NEXTREEL at checkout. It works for Pro or Patron, and it works for renewals as well. Don't be like me. Don't be the guy who almost went pro. Be the one who logs like a legend, because no one remembers the guy who stayed in the garage. Awards, Andy. How to do it award season. Did it do real good?
This film was a big nominee. It had 26 wins with 88 other nominations. It was nominated over at the Oscars for 4. Best Picture, but lost to Parasite. Best Sound, but lost to 1917. And then Best Film Editing and Sound Editing. It won those. At the Toros World Stunt Awards, it won Best Work with a Vehicle. And an interesting one at the AARP Movies for Grown-Ups Awards, it was nominated for Best Buddy Picture, along with, these are the nominees, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Ford v. Ferrari, Just Mercy, The Lighthouse, and The Two Popes.
The Lighthouse?
I know. Best buddy film, right?
Oh my God.
AARP Movies for Grown-Up Awards cracked me up. They are the funniest things. Anyway, what was weird, though, is when they had their award ceremony, they did not identify a winner. It's like they forgot that they had created this category.
Wow.
Right.
So there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it just is like.
Wait a minute. You're telling me, like, even today, right now.
Yeah. There's
no winner.
There's no winner. They never announced a winner.
They never went back and fixed it.
Nope.
It's like it's like the award center needs to be in a memory care unit.
Right. It's very funny.
Wow.
Last but not least, over at the Golden Globes, Christian Bale was nominated for Best Performance by an Actor in a Motion Picture, and he won.
All right. Well, how to do at the box office, our wee little cult film.
Well, Mangold's entry into the car racing subgenre cost a whopping $97.6 million. I say whopping. F1 is costing like 3 times that.
Yeah.
Or $121 million in today's dollars. The movie premiered at Telluride, then opened November 15th, 2019, opposite Charlie's Angels reboot, The Good Liar, and the re-release of Princess Mononoke. This opened in the number 1 spot and stayed in the top 10 for 5 weeks, doing quite well for itself. It earned $117.6 million domestically and $108.7 million internationally for a total gross of $280.6 million in today's dollars. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of just over $1 million, doing quite well for itself.
Not bad. Have you thought to yourself, I just watched this movie and I've been driving a minivan for too long. I think I would like to get a Ford GT40.
Never in my life have I said I want to buy a domestic car.
Ow. Okay. All right. I didn't expect us to go there. But what I will tell you, this was all by way of just telling you, look, they make the Ford GT40 right now. And they didn't for a long time. But they brought it back some years ago and they now make it. And you can buy it. You can buy it in 2 capacities. You can buy it track only, or you can buy it road legal. The road legal version is actually, it is a supercar. I mean, it's a road legal supercar, 660 horsepower. It's an extraordinary car. It'll cost you $500,000. The track only car is truly inspired by the 67 GT40 Mark II or Mark IV. And they only made 67 units, 67. And you could buy one, if one is available, for $1.7 million. You will no longer be able to buy those from Ford. I think they're all in collectors' hands, but it's got 800 horsepower in it. It is a very zippy little car, and they're out there. If you wanted to buy one from the 60s, I think you're looking at over 10 million right now. If you could find one on the collector's market, you're looking at about $10 million for one of these cars. But they're still there. They're out there.
Jeez. What people pay for cars.
Would you even know what to do with a car like that? I would not.
That's what I'm saying. I'm the guy they tell to go get a Plymouth.
But would you want to know what to do with a car like that? Would you ever be interested? Like, let's just say, Andy, it's your birthday. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get us both track day tickets. We're going to go to one of those like BMW race driving courses for like 4 hours. And you and I are going to learn all the things to do behind, like they'll put us in an M3 and just teach us how to drive fast. Would you do that? Do you care?
I did something similar to that before and it's fun. I mean, I do enjoy that sort of thing, but I wasn't behind the wheel. It was something, I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it was something where I was just strapped in and they were driving, but it was still fun. I enjoyed it. I felt like Henry Ford II.
Okay. Step 1, we're going to watch Talladega Nights together. Step 2, I'm going to take you to a driving school and we're going to drive real fast. And you're not going to be strapped in. You'll be strapped in, but also driving.
I've done go-karting. That's pretty fun. But also, you're just
not the same, Andy.
You're just going around the track over and over and over
I
again.
feel like we're having different conversations right now.
All right, everybody. We will be right back for our ratings. But first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, closing out our car racing series and our 14th season, Simon Curtis's The Art of Racing in the Rain. That being said, we might have something up our sleeves, so keep an eye on your feed for a bonus episode before the season runs out.
No race was ever won in the first corner, but many have been lost there. I should know. I was born to be a race car driver, but there's only one problem. That's not me. That's me. He picked me out of a pile of pups, a tangled mass of paws and tails.
This one. Definitely this one.
It's the pick of the litter.
She always said that.
Well, just a minute now. We were thinking of keeping them.
He always said that, too.
Hey.
Call it fate, call it luck. All I knew was I was meant to be his dog.
You like that, huh?
Like it? I loved it. The sound, the smells. I felt like I truly belonged. In racing, your car goes where your eyes go.
Not really much of a dog person.
He's more person than dog.
Denny was clearly taken with her grooming. She probably bathed every day for all I knew.
Does he always stare at people like this?
If he likes them.
Set me free. The best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. Set me free. The best drivers focus only on the present. No one knows what curves life will throw at you. But if a driver has the courage to create his own conditions, then the rain is simply rain. But for now, all I want is one more lap. Faster, Denny. Faster.
Oh, sweet boy, come here.
It must be amazing to have a body that can carry an entire creature inside. I just hoped it would look like me.
In the vast landscape of cinema, there are those who watch films and those who live them. Those who see only what's on the screen and those who look deeper, who search for the magic, the soul of the story. We are the latter. We are the soulful cinephiles. In a world where the film industry is increasingly dominated by soulless bureaucrats, by suits more interested in the bottom line than the art of storytelling, we are the ones who keep the flame of cinema burning bright. We are the ones who seek out the magic, whether it's hidden in the frames of a big-budget blockbuster or flickering to life in a small-scale indie. And we've found a home, a sanctuary, a place where our passion is celebrated, our curiosity encouraged, our love for film nurtured. That place is The Next Reel. Here, we don't just watch movies, we unpack them, dissect them, revel in them. We dive deep into the stories that move us, the characters that inspire us, the themes that challenge us. We explore the full spectrum of cinema, from the obscure to the iconic, from the art house to the multiplex. But The Next Reel isn't just a podcast, it's a community, a gathering of kindred spirits, of fellow travelers on the endless journey of cinematic discovery. It's a place where we can come together to share our insights, our questions, our unbridled enthusiasm for this medium that means so much to us. And now, you have a chance to be part of it, to join the ranks of the soulful cinephiles, to help keep the magic of movies alive in a world that too often forgets its power. By becoming a member of The Next Reel, you're not just getting access to bonus content or ad-free episodes, though those are certainly perks. You're making a statement. You're saying that cinema matters, that storytelling matters, that the soul of a film is worth fighting for. You're saying that you're one of us, a soulful cinephile in a soulless world, ready to seek out the magic wherever it may hide. So join us. Head to truestory.fm/join and become a part of this community, this movement. Help us keep the soul of cinema burning bright, because in a world of soulless bureaucrats, the soulful cinephiles are the ones who will keep the magic alive. And with The Next Reel, that magic is just a click away.
Letterboxd, Andy, letterboxd.com/The Next Reel. That's where you can find our HQ page and start diving into all of our reviews and stuff. What are you going to do for this movie?
I've enjoyed this movie both times I've seen it. I think they did a great job. James Mangold is just a filmmaker who does a solid job exploring his passions. It's not my favorite film of his. That would probably still be Logan, I think. But this man just knows how to tell great stories. And this, I think, is one of his greats. 4 out of 5 is where I land with this one.
Okay. It's 5 stars. 5 stars and a heart. That's fine. So I get the roundup this week, and I'm okay with that.
That's right. So you're going 5 stars and a heart. I'm 4 stars and a heart. That rounds up to 4.5 stars and a heart over on our account at Letterboxd. Which you can find us there at The Next Reel. You can find me there at Soda Creek Film. You can find Pete there. at Pete Wright. So what did you think about Ford v. Ferrari? We would love to hear your thoughts. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
Mine's going to require a little bit of discussion because I don't know what this is. So can I go first?
Oh, sure.
It's from Maria. It's 4 stars and a heart. You got to respect both my Le Mans, Christian Bale, and Matt Damon for going full method in this by watching that My Strange Addictions video called Sex with My Car Way Too Many Times. Vroom, vroom, indeed. Do you know what any of that is?
Well, at the beginning, she's talking about her men, my Le Mans.
Yeah, I get
Le Mans.
that.
Okay. Well, you have to say it Le Mans because that's the part of the joke. As for Sex with My Car, My Strange Addiction, I am looking at it's a
wow
video.
I'm watching it right now.
Nathaniel is in a committed relationship with his car, Chase. Okay. And so basically it's done as a...
Oh, God, he's licking his car right now. He's licking it and sucking on it.
I think he's
sucking his car.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna keep watching it. So anyway, that's what that's all about.
Okay. I am really, really glad that we...
So that's what she's talking about. She's joking that they watch this too many times because they love their cars so much.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Wow.
Glad we solved that puzzle.
Oh. I have never seen that. I can't believe it.
Yeah, you should.
TLC, My Strange Addiction.
Watch it in your VR set.
16 million views from 8 years ago. How has this not come to my internet yet?
Make it 8 million and one, Pete. Come on, you can do it.
Oh, it's 8 million. It's 16 million.
Yeah,
16 million.
60 million and one.
48,016 comments. How would one even begin reading those comments?
We should change the next reel, and instead of watching movies, we should do like a different YouTube video that we find each week.
That's internet circa 1999. I think Dignation took care of that. Okay.
All right.
What is yours?
Mine is a 3-star by Cinephila, who has this to say. Before I watched this, I thought Matt Damon played Ford and Christian Bale played Ferrari. The rumors are true. I have 2 brain cells. I will say the movie poster, you got 2 guys, Ford v Ferrari. It does make it feel like it's setting you up as these are the 2 guys. If you know nothing else about it, I can see where they would think that.
It turns out the protagonist is Henry Ford II.
All along.
And the antagonist is Enzo Ferrari.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Thanks, Letterboxd.